Episode Nagi has really been a great series, watching the perspective of Nagi and his inner thoughts as he works his way into bluelock. The biggest problem with Nagi before was his great talent, but his lack of genuine passion for anything and always being lazy. Bluelock has allowed him to find out about himself and figure out the passion that he was missing. The latest chapters of episode Nagi specifically highlight this change for Nagi and give off a huge lesson that follows Nagi throughout the rest of the bluelock series. After losing Asagi, Nagi, Baro, and Shigiri were stuck on what to do. They didn't have Asagi anymore, who was the glue of their team and took care of everything. They needed to figure out how to win without Asagi's input this time. Nagi is finding his way up to face Asagi once again to be able to defeat him. It's all that's on his mind now. The three eventually go on to meet a person in bluelock named Reiji Hiragi. Now Reiji's character was very interesting. He's a fortune-telling analytical type player and asks the gang if they like fortune-telling. Hiragi finally gets to read the tarot card for Nagi, and his card is Death. The tarot card of death means ceasing separation and game over. Now we all know that Nagi's aura icon is a skull death symbol, so it is death that is always around him. Hiragi continues saying, when you look at the one-winged angel at his feet, what do you see? Obviously it's lost one of its wings, and since it can't fly with just one, at this rate it'll die here. Yeah, this is the time to crush you, Nagi. Reiji then offers to play Nagi in the next match, leaving everyone pretty shocked. Shigiri says fine, let's do it, and your fortune is basically right. The three of us are in a bad spot, and it works out well if we have an enemy we all hate. Hiragi says, aha, you mean me? Well, that settles it. That just leaves Nagi. Nagi then takes the card and says, give me that. He taps onto the tarot card and says, I'm pissed, so I'll tell you your fortune. Hiragi says, huh? Nagi then selects the tarot card, the Fool. It means the dumbass is gonna get beaten up by a one-winged angel. We then connect to the game and Hiragi says, did you know that fortune-telling's foundation is statistics? Personality, thought, and movement patterns. By analyzing trends and large amounts of data from someone's history, you can use probability to predict their future. Basically, no matter what type of person it is, by applying one's personality to the accumulated data, I can narrow down their possible future outcomes, and can even explain a prodigy. You're nothing more than another pattern. See, you're the type who snaps at a time like this. Hiragi continues forward, saying, I have my own weapon too, and Nagi notices he's able to do a running trap, but the ball is up, and there. Hiragi says meeting a natural, intuitive prodigy like you and crushing you with logic feels so good as he taps Nagi on the head. They end up scoring, making Team White up 2-0. Nagi says, damn Hiragi, such a rational playstyle. It's kinda like Asagi's. No, his weapon is trapping, so he's like me. Basically his abilities are like a hybrid of me and Asagi. What would Ryo or Asagi do at a time like this? Now this is great for Nagi to go up against an opponent like Hiragi, who is basically a mix of Asagi and Nagi at the same time. Shigiri says, okay, huddle up. We're gonna lose at this rate. Nagi says, yeah, I wanna win though. Shigiri says, we were thinking too much about our strong points. Nothing's gonna change unless we change our way of thinking. Nagi says, well, people don't really want to think about their weak points. Shigiri says, okay, let's use our heads then, and try using a weak point from framework. Baro says, huh? And Nagi says, what's that? Shigiri says, I think I've heard about it before. For example, let's say you don't like spicy food, but there are lots of kinds of spicy food, right? Like curry or kimchi or wasabi or spicy pollock roe. But then you think about it and like you can do wasabi and curry is fine and you don't just like kimchi. And then you realize it's not all spicy food, you just don't like chili peppers. Your way of thinking lets you get to the essence. Nagi says, oh, good point. People analyze the things they like, but you don't bother thinking too much about the things you don't like because you don't like them. Shigiri says, right, that's a weak point framework. And we think like that and determine the limits of our soccer weaknesses. I think we can overcome them. Baro doesn't care at all and says do it yourself, and Nagi says yeah, it sounds like a pain. Shigiri figures that. He says well, unless one of us three overcomes their weaknesses, we're not gonna have a breakthrough. If we can't do it, we'll stay weak and it'll all just end right here. Hiragi ends up stealing the ball later on in the game and says your greatest weak point to Nagi is that you're a prodigy and therefore ignorant. You don't know enough about soccer. He then scores again against Nagi, making the score 3-0. He says he will educate Nagi, so lose already and join us. Nagi notices that Shigiri and Baro are trying to get stronger. As they score a goal, Shigiri says let's get another one and Baro says next one's mine. Nagi says I want to change and get stronger too. He wants to overcome his weakness. Hiragi says let's just relax for now, we're still in the lead. It's first to 5, so let's take this 1 point at a time. Sentetsu says okay, it's all about our mindset. Nico says you mean mindset, right? Then Baro comes to Nico saying the one I've got to deal with is you. Nagi's team starts to come back and Hiragi starts to get upset. He says, who do you think you guys are? Nico is a pipsqueak who self-destructed with wrong info, and this 4-eyed single-celled organism with an idiot complex have lost their utility value. Hiragi decides to settle this for himself. He says, get around me, we're breaking through the center. At this point, all I can trust is my own data and mine. In the end, other people are nothing more than data to help me live more conveniently. Chigiri says this guy's good, and Brawl says who cares, just crush him. And then with one attack, I'll show them the data known as a goal. Then these ignorant muses will gain hope and they'll change their attitude and regain their motivation. That's how much people's hearts are controlled by data. So control them. I'll become the data known as a hero. Nagi though is able to steal the ball as Haragi is pushing forward. He says my weakness is that I'm a prodigy and therefore ignorant, right? Tear it, liar guy. He says, but I can't fix my soccer ignorance right now and it's a pain, so I won't overcome my weakness. At a time like this, Nagi starts thinking to himself, what would Asagi do? Nico says crap, if he scores it's all over. Then Tetsu says we'll hold him back. Nagi then thinks again, I wonder what Ryo would say. No matter what, I end up thinking about those two. Maybe that's my real weakness. Haragi then says stop him, there's no data showing he can break through alone. Nagi then thinks Haragi's intelligence is kind of like Asagi's, but I feel like there's some definitive differences. Haragi uses lots of data to control people and he tries to force people into his own conception of things. But Asagi believes in people enough to transcend that sort of thinking, and Ryo believed in someone as unpredictable as me, when no one else did. That's right, up until now, somebody was always believing in me, but there's nobody like that with me anymore. So from now on, I'm gonna believe in myself. As we see this cool panel of Nagi, and Reiji's over there on the side says your death itself. Nagi then kicks the ball into the goal and we see the tarot card death flying away. Even without Asagi or Ryo, I can now fight on my own. Yeah, I overcame my weakness. We see Haragi on the floor saying, God damn it, why? What were we missing? My fighting method, my data, what was it? Nico says it means those guys surpassed your data. Haragi says, huh? No way. There's no way such a convenient miracle of a person is in a place like this. Nico says that's the answer. Someone miraculous who can't be boxed in by data. Such a person will be born here in bluelock. We misjudge that, which makes us the fools. Haragi's upset again, lashing out. Nico says if we don't change our fundamental thinking, we won't be able to go any farther. Chigiri, Baro, Nagi, and Asagi. I've got to become an egoist who defies common sense like them. Nico says, what's so bad about being a fool? From here on out, I'm gonna be foolishly reborn. And that leaves Nico and Haragi down to the 2v2 stage. Now we know that they end up coming back eventually, so that's great to see just what they will do. We then head back to Nagi and he says if we don't get stronger again, I feel like we're never gonna reach Asagi and Rin. They end up bringing Zentetsu with him and he says, Nagi, you've changed. Nagi says, really? Is it weird? And Zentetsu says, nope, it's cool. We see Nagi now practicing by himself and he says, something's different. That Aragi guy's traps and shots were so cool that I was copying them, but that's just how he uses his body. There's gotta be a way to move that feels better to me. He can now fight on his own without Ryo or Asagi. That's the feeling he's gained. He wants a mind and body that can let him fight on his own. And he wants to know more about soccer, being more curious now. He doesn't have enough knowledge to beat Asagi, and he wants techniques that lets him fight Rin. He wants to leave proof of his existence, so now he needs a new weapon. Just as he's practicing though, out of nowhere, a small little boy comes out of the way. Nagi says, what's with this pipsqueak? And now we see Kiora Jin who says, move it, white-haired beanpole. They end up battling it out to see who will have the training grounds. Kiora says, when you lose, get lost. Nagi says, that's my line. Kiora Jin is very small but very quick and elegant as they continue to face off against each other. Kiora bows down to the ground and Nagi says, what's with this guy? Even on his hands and knees, he won't fall down. He's tiny, but his body is crazy strong. And Kiora ends up scoring the goal, taking Nagi to the ground, and says, smell you later. Nagi says, wait a minute, I'm not done. We then see Karasu and Otoya coming in. He says picking on Small Fry is something weaklings do. Now Karasu's whole team is on Nagi, all talking about him, saying, but if you lost to Kiora, you must be a real bungler. Yeah, for real. Huh, you guys wanna go? Ninja butt trap, first form. Nagi says, what the heck is up with these pain in the ass delinquents? Karasu and them end up leaving now, saying, alright, let's go train. One more win and we clear this thing. We ain't got time to mess with a hopeless loser like him. Nagi says, yeah, I want to crush them. I was just looking for opponents that get me heated. He says, want to fight us, you delinquent punks, as they get ready for the final match in the 4v4. Now, I love this version of Nagi that we could not see from the original series. He's learning how to change and move on his own accord without anyone else's help. To see him be able to move on without Asagi or Ryo's help is great and helps us determine his value later on in the under 20 match and the NEL. Nagi's biggest weakness was his ignorance of the sport of football due to his talent. He failed to believe in himself and just used the gifts that were born into him. He was doing so well because he had someone like Asagi and Rio who were giving him that spark of light and belief into himself to win. Without that spark, he never believed in himself and needed to do that. Now he has made the right change for the better and he can finally believe in himself. I'm excited to see more of Nagi's thought process all the way up until the NEL so we can see just what else he was thinking. It's also good to see someone like Kiora Jin facing against Nagi because that team has Karasu and Hatoyo on that team, and yet we know from the main series that Kiora Jin ended up on Nagi's team to finish the second selection. Episode Nagi has taught us a great lesson showing that you can still change even if the people that once believed in you are no longer with you. Nagi needed to believe in himself and change to get stronger, and so can all of us in our lives. We can use this story as an example of hard work. Even though Nagi has one of the greatest talents in Blue Lock, it still wasn't enough without hard work and belief in himself to manage to stay in Blue Lock. His ego was tested and he went through hard times to come out alive as the second team of the second selection. Losing Asagi and Rio could have been enough to make Nagi leave Blue Lock, but instead he found that purpose inside himself to continue on anyway. If you guys haven't seen episode Nagi, make sure to check it out as the movie is coming to theaters in America on June 28th, 2024. Well, I thank you guys for watching the video. Please like, comment, subscribe, and I'll be back in the next one. Peace.